This video was not meant to go like this. Hi, I'm Gabby Bear, and today I wanted to build a house. I had the idea of building a house with a courtyard, like a big courtyard garden. I don't really use the Courtyard Oasis kit very much, so I wanted to use that one quite a bit. And I ended up using like a whole lot of kits and packs throughout the build, but I was expecting this to be like a really brief, kind of short build. I had already sketched it out on paper, and I thought, it's not going to take me that long. And then 8 hours later, I look up and I'm like, oh no. I might have lost track of time. So what was supposed to be a normal old build, we're going to turn it into a speed build, and we're just going to kind of speed through the entire thing, because it ended up being a whole lot more than I had necessarily bargained for. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I picked a lot in the For Rent world, just kind of one on the ocean. I thought this would be like the perfect world to kind of just set it up, and as I'm going through right here, I'm just kind of recreating like I said, I had drawn it out on paper, so I'm just kind of recreating what I had drawn and trying to see if I can even get it to work in The Sims. Now, the thing that I don't realize this early on is just how absolutely massive I made this house. I was really concerned about having a big enough courtyard, and this courtyard is kind of smaller than I intended for it to be, but these rooms, once I get to the point of furnishing, I realized my mistake, but by that point, I was already 3 or 4 hours in. I was in deep, and I was just, you know what? We're gonna keep on rolling. We're gonna keep on trucking, because otherwise I would have to redo this entire thing, and that would be demoralizing. So here I am, just kind of going through and playing around with the roofs, and something that I was really glad about is I don't normally do builds like this, so normally I don't get to use a lot of the fun, more decorative roof trims. I'm usually stuck using those first 4 or 5 of them. I think there's maybe 6 of the normal ones, but this time I actually got to use one of the bigger, more decorative trims with like the overhangs, and I thought that looked really nice. And throughout this build, I'm kind of going back and forth between, do I want a Moroccan style build, maybe something currently it looks a little bit more Spanish to me. Frankly, I made the mistake of not really using any reference photos, so I'm just kind of going off of vibes this entire time. So it kind of waffles back and forth between Moroccan and Spanish and something on its own planet, basically. But I do really love how this turned out. I made a big, shared balcony in between the 2 main bedrooms. There's also a 3rd bedroom on the 1st floor, but I decided to make that one the guest room. I don't know. I was trying to make this a fancy, retreat. Kind of like an artsy retreat. It's a little bit out there with the decorations, very meant to impress. And I think it turned out really beautifully. I love those doors. I never get to use them because they're, first off, giant, and second off, they're just kind of not a style I typically use. And here, I spent roughly 10 minutes fighting with these stairs. I don't know why. I just always struggle with stairs. So I managed to get some shapes that I don't even know how I did. How did I get to Z stairs? I don't know. It was super weird. But eventually I did manage to get to some stairs that, they worked. They weren't exactly what I had drawn, but I had reached a point with these stairs that I was I'm just gonna keep fighting these, and I cannot keep doing this for another 20 minutes. So we just stuck with that. Because of the doors I ended up using, I decided to go with a lighter wall. I think it works out a little bit better that way. It's just a lot more cohesive, even though it's, overall this build is a little bit of a mess, but when it's me building, what do you expect? First, I had made the first story, dining / entertaining space match the, balcony, and I didn't really like how that looked, so I decided to instead use those nice big, but not quite as big as the front door archways, and I think they look really nice. One of the challenges that I ran into with this build was the windows. The windows and the interior doors, because I was using tall wall height on the first floor, and I believe it was medium wall height on the second floor. And as you might know, the door and window options for those heights are a little bit limited. Like, yeah, you can use the smaller doors, but it kind of looks like putting a Barbie door on a giant's house, and I still did end up having to use smaller doors, but like, it just looks a little bit funky. I think I used some base game doors for the entries to the bedrooms, which I think is fine. Oh, that was another issue. Doors tend to have, like, for the taller wall heights, they tend to be more like entryway doors. So they, like, have windows or, like, open bits, and you don't want that when it's an entry to, like, a bathroom or a bedroom. So that's why I did have to go with some doors that don't quite match what I was going for, but, like, what else could I do, you know? And here is when I started, like, decorating this kitchen, is when I really realized, like, oh no, oh, this place is a little bit too big, oh no. But I think I managed to make the amount of space work. It's still, like, a pretty massive house, and if I could do this over, which I might one day, I don't know, I probably would make these rooms roughly half the size that they are currently, and make the courtyard bigger. But for now, I just kind of stuck with that. We're going with, like, a blue and yellow color scheme, and for the floors, I was thinking, like, I wanted, like, nice stone, like, tile, but I thought it started looking a little bit too, like, sterile, a little bit too bright. So for the bedrooms and what becomes the office slash study space, I went with, like, a darker floor color, and I think that looks like a lot nicer. It's a lot cozier for those actual living spaces, and the entertaining spaces are much brighter and just, like, overall, like, a different vibe. And here's where I'm messing around with doors, and at this point I saw that for some reason that door, like, was reacting really weirdly on the diagonal. I almost never build with diagonals, so I just never noticed that before. That was really weird. So continuing onwards, we are decorating what was originally going to be, like, the dining room. Like, you have the kitchen flows into the dining and entertaining space. I wanted to put, like, a bar in here, but I didn't want any of the ones with, like, a tall wall that would, like, block those windows. Which kind of led to having some limited options. So in the end, I just decided to swap what was going to be the living room and the dining room. And I think that works out a little bit better. You have, like, you enter the foyer and you walk over into the formal dining room, and, you know, it's very fancy, very, you know, like, impressive, and you don't have guests, you know, if this was real life, you wouldn't have guests, like, looking directly into the kitchen, you know? Here I am, like, just kind of trying to figure out the space for the living room. It kind of just went along with whatever was already going on. I do end up actually getting to add a small bar to this space, which kind of runs into the same issue I was having originally with the dining table being there, but I think with the couches being larger, the amount of visual space that it takes up is, like, it doesn't, like, overwhelm the space as much. And I managed to get, like, the color scheme to work all the way through, which I was very pleased with. For, like, a little bit of a life update, I have a ton of travel coming up. Next week, I'm going to Perth for the weekend. By the time this video goes up, I'm already going to be done with that. And probably with the next trip, which I'm going back to Perth at the end of October to go see a show. I'm very excited about seeing that. Then in November, I'm spending a couple weeks. I'm gonna go visit family. I haven't seen them in almost 2 years at this point, so I'm really looking forward to that. Some of them I haven't seen in, like, 3 or 4. So it's been long overdue, and I can't wait to go see my family. And then, like, I still have more travel. I'm gonna take, like, 3 weeks in, like, the new year, and I'm planning on going, like, on a big trip. It's probably gonna be, like, a couple different countries, but that one still hasn't been quite finalized, but I am very much looking forward to that. Most of the rooms, like the bedrooms, kind of end up looking, like, the same, because, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm imagining this place being more of a luxury type of retreat, maybe like a super fancy Airbnb. I don't even remember adding these mirrors to this build. Like, they just appeared. At some point I did this and I just completely forgot about that. Anyway, my ADHD like super took control of this build, and it's probably taking control of me talking right now, because my mouth is moving a mile a minute, because I notice I keep like jumping from room to room and I'm not finishing one thing before jumping to the next thing. My ADHD is just, it's Jesus took the wheel? No, my ADHD took the wheel. I wish that we had some better, like, dining room furniture. Like, we have hutches and stuff, but I just didn't really like how any of the hutches looked for that room. I think I got it to a place that I was, like, happy with, but I feel like overall for the entirety of this build, I really wish that I had spent a little more time adding clutter and, you know, even more plants than I already did. But, oh, I love that statue so much. Sorry for the tangent. And here I am decorating the office, and I found the perfect bookcases. I love those. I want those in real life. I love like the lighting, and you know, there's plenty of space for adding some knickknacks and some clutter. And this office is very fancy. It's kind of meant to be like, I was imagining like if an artist was meeting with clients in this room, you know, and maybe they have a showcase of some of their artwork in the corner. You know, maybe, I don't know if they actually work in that room. Maybe that easel is just for show. Who knows? I mean, when you have this kind of money, you kind of can do whatever you want with your stuff. Oh, and at this point, I get just, like, distracted trying to make a cube with these, couches. I don't even use these couches in this build. I was just curious if I could do it. And I feel like I may end up doing this trick one day, like, if I'm building, like, a shopping plaza or something. I think it would be, like, a great, like, have, like, a planter in the center of the cube. But that was just like a weird tangent, and here I am. I decided to go with a fountain in the middle. Originally I was going back and forth between, you know, the courtyard having a pool or, you know, just being a garden, but I decided to add a fountain, partially because I realized every time I have a pool in a build, all my Sims want to do is swim, and it's like super annoying to me because like they're constantly changing into their swimsuits and they're just going swimming autonomously, and it's like, no, I need you to like finish your book or whatever. I remembered that I forgot to add windows to most of the other rooms, so here I am adding windows to this second story. This is kind of like, this is where I'm like, okay, the first floor is basically done. Like, there's still clutter and stuff that I want to add later on, but it's basically done. I decided to do the clutter at the very end so that I don't, like, completely overwhelm myself, but don't worry, I still completely overwhelmed myself. I really want to use this build in my Legacy Challenge. I'm thinking about using it as basically a holiday retreat. Like, maybe some generations from now, my Sim is just real stressed and she needs to chill out. I think it would be great. It would be great to like bring a family of Sims, because you got like the 3 bedrooms and, you know, you got a fair bit of activities and just stuff that you can like go do around. I made the 2 bedrooms match. I mean, that's like a hotel anyway. So yeah, this is like a bougie hotel. This is like a boutique hotel. I didn't really know how to finish off that balcony. I added some like benches at first, but I didn't really like how they looked, so I ended up getting rid of them and just leaving like the chairs and the little table. I think that was fine. I mean, most balconies don't have a ton going on the balcony itself anyway, unless it's like meant to be like a big deck. And this one is obviously not. Like, you're just gonna like kind of look out over the courtyard and, you know, enjoy maybe the party going across the way. I was thinking this big like rooftop deck could be like a party space. And at first I was like trying to add a DJ booth, but I didn't really like how that looked. So I just added some lounge chairs and the like Love Struck date blanket thing. And then I was starting to do the like landscaping, but I couldn't, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how I wanted to get basically the landscaping in those corners to work. Eventually I kind of gave up and I just like moved over to like working on the foyer. And I really love those peacock statues, but I wish that we had them facing different directions, because now, you know, just having the two, you got one facing the wall and one facing the room, and it's just kind of like weird. And I wish that they like had, you know, two different of those peacock statues where you could like have them face each other basically, or both be facing out. But I do really love that statue, and I never get to use it, so I was very pleased with that. And here I am trying to like figure out like the layout of the courtyard. I don't know if I want to completely pave it, or, you know, there was a period of time where I seriously considered using that tile, but then I thought, that might be a little bit much. I'm just gonna make it a big garden. And I was really glad that I found these palm trees that like stuck up over the roof. I think that like is a really cool detail. I just started the landscaping, and I tried to make it look cohesive, like it belonged in that environment, but it was still like a curated garden, like it was intentionally placed. I had my debug stuff open, and it made it like really hard to search through what plants were available, because half the plants were like, I don't know the name of it, but I know the vibe, and I'm scrolling, and I cannot find them. It was kind of frustrating at some points, but basically I have like two sections that are a little bit more floral, a little bit more woody, and then I have two sections at the opposite corners that are like cactus gardens. Like, you know, they're decorated with sand, and I think it looks nice. I think it looks like pretty balanced, even if, like I had said earlier, I wish that I was able to make the courtyard bigger so I had to add more detail. There was a long period of time where I was trying to figure out how on earth am I going to like make paths, because you saw earlier I was kind of trying to terrain tools them, and that didn't really work out. And then I started trying to like use the fences, but that also wasn't really working because they create like the corners, and the curved platforms were just still way too big. So I couldn't quite get them to like a spot that I liked. So what I ended up doing instead, and you'll see there's gonna be like a jump, but it's not for a bit. There's gonna be a jump where like I spent like a full maybe 45 minutes to an hour just like taking some boulders, shrinking them down, and just like placing hundreds of them in like basically to like line the garden in more of a pattern that I couldn't achieve with the normal fencing tools. And I love how it turned out, but it was like really frustrating to do in the moment. I really should have taken more breaks during this build. Another frustrating thing about building with debug and like with the rocks and stuff is you can't tell how big the rocks are until you're like about to place it, and then it's like just a mountain, and you're like, okay, well I can't use this one. So it took me a while to find rocks that were like the right sizes, and especially the ones that were the right size and shape to use for the lining of the garden areas. Yeah, here I am just trying to figure out like, how am I going to line this? Am I just going to pave the rest of the areas? I even like start to try to use like the triangle floor tiles, but I hated that even more. And I just couldn't get anything that I liked. I didn't like the way that the terrain tools looked, so I just kind of gave up at this point. And like I said, at that point I was like, okay, I can just like use tiny rocks. So this is the point where I'm like hunting down what rock I want to use, and then, you know, half of them are like mountain size. I'm like, I can't use that. And here I think I finally, that's not the rock I used. Where is the rock that I used? Where is it? Huh? Oh, and there's the rock that I found that I really liked. I liked that it had like a nice flat side, and so I just used it 100 times over. And here I am. I just kind of slowed this down because I spun around way too quickly when I was filming this. But basically I created some like nice like organic shapes, but still leaving plenty of room for your Sims to walk through. And I also made like a little trash can area. Not that it really matters for gameplay that much because we already have a trash can in the kitchen. I just thought that added a little bit of extra aesthetic, a little bit more realism. So then I'm adding to the entryway, and because this place is already like so out there, I figured that the entryway like path could be that checkerboard. So I do get my checkerboard in the end. I spend a lot longer than I want to admit just trying to figure out the landscaping for the front of the house, because I want it to be like mostly symmetrical, but like, you know, there's only so much I know about landscaping The Sims, and I'm gonna be honest, it's not much. So this was like a build that really helped me like explore a little bit more of the landscaping options. Because like I said, I don't normally landscape. So I ended up just picking like 2 or 3 colors. I think this was just like mostly the white or yellow flowers and the like fern type of plants. And then I started finally fixing the lighting so we don't have the saucer lights everywhere. I still did the small saucer lights in the areas where there was a fan. I like that the small saucer lights work through the fan, so I don't have like a chandelier hanging down and like, you know, not that it would cause issues in game, but like in real life, you know, you can't have a chandelier unless it's like connected to the fan. You're not gonna have a chandelier and a fan. I wish I added more lights to the foyer. I just added like these ones and that was fine, but like, come on girl, you could do better. I just try to make sure that these rooms were all decently well lit. They're not like the brightest, but they're like lit enough that I don't think your Sims are gonna like complain about the dark. I finally got around to filling up this corner with a bunch of plants. I knew at some point I wanted a rooftop garden, and this is not exactly what I pictured, but I figured this would probably be fine. And I mean, in my mind, it makes sense to have all the plants in one place because like the hotel is not going to want to have to like individually take care of every single plant. So they're just going to like spray water over them all in one go. Woo! And then, you know, they're done. They're done. At least for now, until the plants die. I mean, ironic considering the place has a garden, but I just figured like they're not going to want to take care of those plants on the second story all the time. And then I started adding artwork to the walls, and I really tried to add like bigger pieces of artwork and stuff that could like kind of fill up the space a bit. I probably could have added a lot more, but by this point I had been filming for like 8 hours and I had the idea, sorry this is a bit of a tangent, I really thought long and hard about, do I want them to have the hot dog painting in the formal office? I really wanted them to, but I ended up switching to like a boring like logo type of design. I wish I stuck with the hot dog one because the idea of like going into like a very, you know, formal client meeting and, you know, your artwork is on display and you have some beautiful portraits and then a hot dog. I don't know. I just think that's really funny. I wish I stuck with that, but I chickened out. And at this point, I ended up adding a bunch of clutter to the kitchen. I focused a lot of cluttering on the kitchen. Unfortunately, it's only like after editing that I realized, oh, I forgot to add any clutter to the bathrooms. So the bathrooms are very clean. The kitchen is very cluttered. I don't know. Listen, by this point I'd been filming for like 8 hours, so I wasn't about to be doing like any super complex stuff. I definitely could have gotten a little bit more thorough with my build, but like I said, I made the mistake of letting my ADHD take the wheel, and I just kind of lost track of time. And I think we're actually approaching the end of this build. I added like a fire alarm because I totally forgot to add one earlier, and just some like final details. Oh, I did try to add like the stepping stones because I was still like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to have like a path or not with the courtyard, but it just looked really messy, so I'm just going to like headcanon that they just have like really decently cared for grass. Like maybe people aren't walking through the courtyard all the time. Like maybe it's just like, you know, like people stay out of there so it looks really nice. But who am I to say? I don't know. So I do some final landscaping and a little bit more terrain tools on the outside, and this is pretty much it done. And now that this build is done, I figure we could go back and do a little bit of a tour. Apparently my game decided it's raining today, so it's not exactly the best weather, but you know, we can just stick with that. So here we enter the foyer, and it's very impressive. It feels like entering like a fancy like boutique hotel, which is kind of cool. And this is the office slash workspace, very fancy. And we're just gonna skip right through to the guest room. I really like how relaxing this room is. It's just like, you know, there's so much craziness going on. We don't need this room to also be like another dose of chaos. Besides, the tile in this room is plenty. And this is the half bath, which leads out to the living room and over to the kitchen. And this is like the one room that I actually bothered to add enough clutter. I definitely, like, as I'm exploring this house, I'm realizing like there's a lot of things I wish I would have done a little bit differently, but I still really like how it turned out. And I'm definitely thinking about going back and like redoing this build in the future. Maybe, you know, like with more than just a sketch on a sticky note as my guide. I'm just saying. We're gonna hop up to the second story and you get to see like all the plants all gathered, and you know, if this was a sunny day, this would be an absolutely gorgeous place to sit and lounge and, you know, just look out over the garden. And then we go into one of the main bedrooms, and I really like how this is decorated. It's very simple, but you know, it definitely has a little bit more like personality. Like someone who loves color lives here, you know. I mean, overall this entire place is like, they're not afraid of color, except in this room. This room is a lot more like kind of a relaxing retreat, like a little bit of an escape from all of the crazy colors. You still get to see out over the garden. I think it's all super lovely. So overall, this build did not go exactly how I planned, but I still really like how it turned out. I think it was a really nice challenge because I'm very used to like building like suburban homes. So it was a nice way to like try out some different, you know, swatches and items that I don't typically use. I found a whole bunch of swatches for things that I might want to use in a future build, you know, in other ways. You know, maybe I didn't use them here, but I have ideas for future builds. So I hope you guys stick with me. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye!